Hi, today I'm going to share 4 suggestions with what to do about a rude stepchild who is in their late teens, early 20s and seem to take it out on you and behave really rudely. There are other reasons why a stepchild might be rude. One of them is that your partner's ex, so your stepchild's other parent, may be putting them up to be rude, and that's different. What I'm talking about is an attitude and behaviour and rudeness which is just shouldn't really be allowed. Your partner's ex might be putting them up to it a bit, but the real rudeness is they should know better. They should know not to speak to you like that, but they do. Hi, I post once a week, so subscribe to my channel and hit the notification bell and I'll let you know every time I post. I was speaking to a friend last week. She was a stepchild when she was 23 and we talked about being stepchildren, and I just want to share with you some things about rude stepchildren. My friend couldn't be a nicer person. She's placid, easygoing, friendly, in every way a lovely person. And yet she says she was very rude to her stepmother. And I don't know all the answers to all these things, but I'm going to share with you what I think step-parents can do to help themselves with rude stepchildren. When you become a stepchild in your late teens, or as my friend did in her early 20s, you're at a developmental life stage which is all about developing your own opinions and breaking loose from the family unit. And in order to do that, they need to be developing a mind of their own, which includes things like attitudes and opinions about things, and testing out responses and saying stuff to sort of see what the reaction is. When you're a younger child, someone will tell you off if you get it wrong. You're used to that. And yet, as you get a bit older, and certainly in your early 20s, that adults don't tend to say something or tell you off. They instead back away, or they say, oh, well, that, if you've got that opinion, you know, well. So they respond with a more adult-to-adult response than adult-to-child. So when you are in that stage, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, you're in very much the area of your life where you're bursting out. You're wanting to be free. You've got opinions and ideas about things, and you think they're right. And also, people aren't stopping you from expressing them like they used to. Now, I'm not trying to make an excuse for poor, rude behaviour in stepchildren. And I'm also not trying to say that the stepchild shouldn't know how to behave better. Also, step-parents can have problems with their partner, who you as the step-parent feel you should get them to address their child and tell them not to behave in such a rude manner. But all of these things rely on other people making a difference and doing things differently. And today I want to come up with 4 things for you that you can possibly do to change your situation if you are finding you have to be dealing with a rude stepchild. My first point is to go below the attitude and the behaviour and the antsy stance, where that's just age-appropriate stuff, where they're giving you a lot of froth about leaving home and wanting their independence and having an attitude and opinion of their own. If you deep dive below that and see the child as really just an adolescent growing up and experimenting, and they can afford to experiment with you because you're not one of their parents. They don't feel as though they can damage you like they could other relationships. And so they can be much crueler to you than to others. And it's most unfair, and I know, and it's not right, but that doesn't change it. So my suggestion number one is to dig deep, dive deep, go beneath the attitude and see the child for who they really are, and see if you can't find things that you do, I know it's difficult, like or admire or respect at least about the child. And see if you can't nurture that part of your relationship and not the anger that they and you are feeling. Second point is that the child, and I'm calling them a child, they're probably an adolescent or in their early 20s, they are childlike in the sense they've only had very limited experience of things in their lives. They've only had the households that they've been brought up in, maybe only one household up until now. So although they talk as though they understand the whole world, they actually have very limited experience about what is expected of them, what should be happening, what would polite look like, why they should be polite, and any of these other things. So, proper communication is something that needs to be put in place in order for you to be able to say what you expect should be happening. Because their understanding of what should be happening is so very limited. Even rude adolescents, I believe, want to please. You know, we're all human and we all have frailty. And we like to be liked, even adolescents and young people. So my challenge to you is to communicate to them clearly and positively and forward-lookingly what you do want in terms of behaviour, what they say, what's acceptable, so that they can meet your expectation needs. My question to you is, do they know what you expect? I know that you're going to say, well, anybody should know that somebody can't call somebody else a name and think that's okay, or use swear words at me and think that's okay, or shout or push themselves around, whatever it is. But my question to you is, have you actually explained what you would expect? Because at the moment, they're trying things out and getting away with it because you're not saying anything, your partner's not saying anything, nobody else is saying anything to them, so that's what they're doing. Arrange to sit down and have a meeting with them. It's much easier to do if you found through your deep dive some things that you like about them. But arrange a convenient time for you and them to have a meeting. Having meetings with the you and them alone, great. I'd say essential. But also meetings for the whole family. This is a whole new culture you're developing with your partner, and those children are better off feeling as though they're part of that family through communication, which is done through meetings. Sit your stepchild down and explain all the things that you do like about them and that you share and that you hope to have a good relationship with them. And that in part of that relationship is that you're expecting them not to be rude, to be able to say hello nicely, to ask about each other's days, that they respond appropriately when you ask appropriate questions, as long as they're not too invasive, and for them to tell you if some questions you're asking aren't okay, or these kinds of things, so that they know what is expected of them and what you are watching. And then don't forget, when they do change their communication with you, to acknowledge it and welcome it. Third thing is, it's really easy as a step-parent to be critical. And they're not your children, especially if they're rude. You don't even like them some of the time. But criticism will just bring distance and discord. They will just feel pushed away. And I know this is difficult, but if you withhold criticism, keep it to yourself. Go with praise when you can and sorting out expectations into the future, not going on about bad behaviour in the past. Just start from the now and go with the future. Criticism can be the death of a relationship. Death. Few people, few relationships survive criticism. And I know it may be justified criticism, but if you don't make the effort to not criticise, then no one else will, and they're not going to change, so the relationship will very likely suffer. Fourth thing, if you do this, if you make the effort, if you as the step-parent say, this is tough, but I am going to try it, I also want you to reward yourself elsewhere. So I'm not expecting you to ask for thanks from the stepchild for having a better relationship or making the effort or spending the time with them or going out places with them. I'm not expecting you to ask the child to say thank you for that. Because they're in their late teens and early 20s, they're quite selfish at that time and very self-involved. They don't look outside to see what an effort other people are making on their behalf. That comes later. But if you decide you're going to change the relationship you have with your stepchild by doing these things, I want you to reward yourself for making the effort and doing this elsewhere. And I don't know what that might mean, but it might mean a treat or a bit of a luxury somewhere or a bit of time spent doing something just what you want. But don't be frightened to reward yourself for doing this, basically for your stepchild, but also for your future relationship with your stepchild. Because if you do this now, the relationship with your stepchild will be much, much better later. And this is, in my opinion, very often just all because you've become a step-parent at a particular life stage of your stepchild where they are being the way they are because they're having to leave home and become independent and become a person in their own right. And in order to do that, they push back at other things that are going on in their lives. And often if it's a new step-parent, that's you. It's tough. We run workshops, sessions. I do an email response service, and we write booklets. If you want to find links to the website and our other social media, have a look at the description box below.